Good day, everyone. We are Group 7, and we will report Chapter 8, Financial Reporting and Management Reporting. I am the first reporter, Raymond Resplandor, and we will be talking first the General Ledger System. So what are the functions of the General Ledger System? First, in the input stage, the General Ledger System should collect transaction data promptly and accurately. So dapat yung kino-collect or yung ini-input sa General Ledger System na transaction data are accurate para tama din yung input. Number 2, the General Ledger System should classify or code data and accounts. So, bakit kailangan naka-classify or naka-code yung data and accounts? Para mas mabilis siyang balikan whenever need siyang balikan or mabilis mag-audit or mag-reconcile. And the third is General Ledger System should validate collected transactions and maintain accounting controls. So that's for the input stage. Now, in the processing stage, the General Ledger System should process transaction data by posting transactions to their proper accounts. So dapat ipopost yung mga transactions sa respective accounts nila. And also, update general ledger accounts and transaction file. In processing the transaction data, we should also, or accountants also should record adjustments to accounts. And finally, for the output, a general ledger system should store transaction data para mas mabilis balikan yung past transactions or meron kang basis for comparison do sa current at saka do sa past transactions. And lastly, General Ledger System should generate timely financial reports. And now to the relationship of General Ledger System or GLS to other information subsystem. So, itong mga nakapalibot ditong bilog, yung mga yan, yun yung mga information subsystem. And, halimbawa itong billings, dapat nagko-convert siya sa General Ledger System. Or yung sales, transactions sa sales, ipopost siya sa General Ledger System. Yung cash receipts, cost accounting, accounts payable, cash disbursement, payroll, and inventory control. Tapos, pag nabuo na or tama na yun nasa General Ledger System, ito yung magiging basis ng financial report ng mga accountants para sa external users, and ito din yung magiging basis ng internal report ng management reporting system. So, ayan yung relationship ng GLS sa other information subsystem. Now, ano ba yung nakalagay or ano ba yung mga nasa GLS database? First is the General Ledger Master File. So, it is the principal FRS file based on chart of accounts. So, naka-base siya sa organization's published chart of accounts. Each record in the GL master is either a separate GL account, for example sales, or the control account. Next one is the General Ledger History file. So it is used for comparative financial support. So it contains naman yung record of all General Ledger transactions and replaces traditional general journal. So in short, nandyan yung general record ng General Ledger for the past transactions. So, dyan makikita if need balikan, dyan makikita yung mga transactions na ipinost sa General Ledger sa past accounting periods. Next one is the Journal Voucher file. So, all journal vouchers of the current period. Ito yung journal vouchers na na-collect and pre-process during the current period. Yun lang yun. Then, Next one is the journal voucher history file, journal vouchers of past periods of audit trail. So ito naman yung mga journal vouchers na nakolekta in the past period. And ginagamit siya for audit trail para ma-backtrack yung ah, ibang transactions na ibang transactions in the past. So for auditing siya, for auditing purposes. Next one is the responsibility center file. Financial data by responsibility center of MRS. So responsibility center file contains the revenues, expenditures, and other resource utilization data for each responsibility center in the organization. So, ang gumagamit nitong responsibility center file ay management reporting system. It is for internal reports. Management reports. And the last one is the budget master file. It is the budget data by responsibility centers of MRS. And this budget master file contains the budgeted amounts of revenues, expenditures, and other resources for responsibility centers. So, yung sa strategic cost management na ginagawa nating budget, uh, dito nakapaloob yun sa budget master file. Na ito naman yung example ng journal voucher for general ledger master file. So dapat ang journal voucher ay may number, may date, may account number, account name, proper amounts, saka yung explanation. And ito yung pinaka-importante, yung kung sino yung nag-approve or dapat yung journal voucher ay authorized ng manager kung saan nanggaling yung voucher na yun. Kasi it is for control purposes. At para din malaman kung tama ba, hindi naman yan i-approve kung mali. So, importante yan. Pero take note na example lang tong itsura nitong journal voucher pero nagba-vary siya sa iba't ibang entity, yung design. And now to the financial reporting process. So, yung financial reporting process, magsisimula when there is an economic event. So, example of economic event, halimbawa, nag-purchase tayo ng inventories or may sales, ganon. So, when there's an economic event, we will capture those transactions and those transactions will be posted to the journal ledgers. After posting it to the journal ledgers, we will now prepare the journal voucher. And those journal vouchers will be posted to the general ledger. Yung mga journal vouchers na nakolekta natin ay mapupunta naman sa journal voucher file. Now, ngayon nakapost na siya sa general ledger, we will continue to the next step, which is obtain account balance for the worksheet. Then, after that, we will prepare the worksheet and we will prepare also the trial balance. After nating ma-prepare yung trial balance, we will now analyze account balances, prepare adjusting entries, and adjusting trial balance or adjusted trial balance rather. So, sa pag-prepare natin ng adjusting entries, need din natin doon ang journal voucher. So, yung journal voucher na gagamitin natin sa adjusting entries will also be posted to the general ledger and mapupunta din siya sa journal voucher file. After preparing adjusting entries, we will now generate the adjusted trial balance. After that, we will now prepare the financial statements. And these financial statements would be used or ang target nitong financial statements ay stakeholders. So, when preparing closing entries and posting it to the general ledger, need din natin ng journal voucher. And those journal vouchers would be posted to the general ledger and would also go to the general voucher file. Now, yung kompletong general ledger, doon tayo magbe-base at doon ibe-base yung post-closing trial balance. And those post-closing trial balance contains the balance sheet accounts na maki-carry forward sa next accounting period. So, yan yung financial reporting process. Para lang siya sa basic accounting. Ang pinagkaiba lang, need lang nating mag-prepare ng journal vouchers. Now, ano nga ba yung mga reports na ma-generate natin sa general ledger system? First is general ledger analysis. Itong general ledger analysis, it contains the listing of transactions, uh, allocation to expenses to cost centers, and it also contains comparison of account balances from prior periods. Nandito din yung trial balance. So, yan yung laman ng general ledger analysis na ma-generate natin under the general ledger system. The next report that we can generate from the general ledger system is the financial statements. And alam naman natin kung ano ang nasa financial statements. So, balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flows. So, yung pangatlo naman na report is the managerial reports na ginagamit ng management or for internal purposes, and it contains analysis of sales, analysis of cash, analysis of cash receivables. And lastly, yung chart of accounts. So, ito yung coded listing of accounts. So, yung apat na yan ang reports na ma-generate natin under the general ledger system. So, in the general ledger or financial reporting system, may mga potential risks tayo na may encounter during the process. So, first one is improperly prepared journal entries. So, para ma-counter to, dapat chine-check ng maayos yung mga journal entries and dapat tama din yung nakalagay sa journal vouchers. The next potential risk is the unposted journal entries. So, pag may unposted journal entries, ang tendency na mangyari nito is misrepresentation. Kasi it's either, I mean, pag unposted, edi may mga accounts na uh, understated or overstated. So, dapat binawash out nito ng entity and dapat ma-regulate siya. Next one is debits not equal to credits. So, itong risk naman na to is sa mali yung pagpo-post natin ng amounts. Na mali ng amount or human error. So, isa din sa paraan para ma-counter to is to double check. Next potential risk is subsidiary not equal to general ledger and control accounts. So, alam naman natin na ang subsidiary ay dapat equal sa general ledger control accounts. So, dapat double check din. Or dapat matindi or maayos yung control system ng isang company. Another potential risk is inappropriate access to the GL. So, dapat authorized personnel lang yung nakaka-access sa general ledger. Kasi, there could be instances na baguhin yung nasa general ledger to commit fraud. So, dapat nakasecure siya to counter it. And selected people lang ang nakaka-access sa kanya. Another risk is poor audit trail. So, dapat, para ma-counter tong poor audit trail, dapat meron tayong backup or meron tayong file kung saan nandoon yung mga past transactions ng isang company. So, dapat meron tayong master file and also may backup din yung master file na yun. So, dito din, lost or damaged data. Dito sa lost or damaged data, so syempre dapat may backup ka in case na mawala or masira yung data. And lastly, account balances that are wrong because of unauthorized or incorrect vouchers. So, dapat, bago i-post sa general ledger, yung mga journal vouchers, authorize siya ng managers kung saan ang galing yun. Dapat hindi ipinopost sa general ledger kung walang pirma or hindi approved ng mga managers kung saan ang galing yung voucher. And now, those potential risks will na result to financial reporting system control issues. So first one is transaction authorization. Journal vouchers must be authorized by a manager at the source department. So yan yung sinasabi ko kanina, dapat authorized yung journal vouchers bago siya i-post sa general ledger. Number two, segregation of duties. So yung general ledger clerks, dapat ang trabaho niya lang ay nasa general ledger. So general ledger system. And general ledger clerks should not have record-keeping responsibility for special journals or subsidiary ledgers. GL clerks should not also prepare journal vouchers. And lastly, GL clerks should not have custody of physical assets. Hindi nila yung trabaho. So, dapat ang GL clerks ay hindi naka-assign sa mga gawain ito. Number 3 is access controls. Unauthorized access to general ledger can result in errors, fraud, and misinterpretations in financial statements. So, yun nga, pag nagkaroon ng breach or kung sino-sino lang nag-a-access dun sa general ledger, may tendency na magkaroon ng error or yung unauthorized person na mag-access doon is baguhin yun nandun sa general ledger to commit fraud. Now, Sarbanes-Oxley requires controls that limit database access to only authorized individuals. So, number 4, accounting records. Trace source documents from inception to financial statements and vice versa. So, dapat kaya nating i-trace or i-backtrack yung transactions or yung financial data from the inception or simula pa lang nung financial reporting process hanggang sa ma-generate natin yung financial statements or from the financial statements output hanggang i-backtrack natin hanggang sa pag-i-input pa lang. 5. Independent verification. General Ledger Department reconciles journal vouchers and summaries. So, dito sa pagre-reconcile ng journal vouchers and summaries, there are two important operational reports used. First is the journal voucher listing. It contains the details of each journal voucher posted to the general ledger. Second is the general ledger charge report, and it contains the effects of journal voucher postings on GL accounts. Itong dalawang operational reports na ito ay ginagamit para tama yung pagre-reconcile ng journal vouchers at saka summaries. Saka for internal control na din. And now, general ledger or financial reporting system using database technology. Dito naman, itong different system na to, sales system, cash receipt system, purchase system, and other system, yung mga transaction dito ay ipopost sa general master file. So, dito sa general master file naman, i-update natin yung general ledger. Then, after ma-update, we will prepare the adjusting and closing entries, and we can generate the adjusting trial balance, financial statements, and post-closing trial balance. So, yung mga journal vouchers na ginamit mapapapunta sa journal transaction file or yung any updates sa journal transaction file, and yung updated general ledger would create summary reports, it would be reviewed, and yeah, it would create summary reports and the file. So dito sa when using database technology, ang problem na lang dito is or ang I mean not problem pero ang trabaho na lang dito is i-monitor yung flow ng financial reporting system. I-monitor mo na lang kung tama or i-double check mo kung tama ba yung i-input sa general ledger. Now, ito naman yung advantages or yung sum of advantages at saka yung effect when using database technology. So, sa advantage mo na, uh, immediate update and reconciliation. Kasi nga, automatic na siya and using technology na, so mas mabilis yung update at saka yung reconciliation. It is also timely, if not real-time information. So, timely yung information kung hindi man real-time. Kasi nga, automatic, mabilis na lang mag-generate ng FS. Another one is remove separation of transaction, authorization, and processing. So, hindi na ganun matrabaho kasi hindi na bukod-bukod yung ah, transaction, authorization, saka yung processing. Kaso, hindi naman siya separated. There should be a journal voucher listing and account activity reports as a compensating control. So, ito yung nga yung sinasabi ko kanina na yung journal voucher listing and account activity would be for internal controls. Lastly, centralized access to accounting records. So, hindi na yung access sa accounting records centralized na sa iisa na lang. Kasi sa database na lang siya kukunin. And to regulate this access, passwords and authorization tables will be used as controls.
Thank you, Raymond, for that report. And now I'm Shamira Leon Perez to continue our report. So first, right now, there are technologies that are being used for the re-engineering. So first, we have here the hypertext markup language, or commonly known as the HTML. So usually, online reporting of financial data has become a competitive necessity for any organizations. Currently, most organizations accomplish this by placing their financial statements and other financial reports on their respective websites as HTML documents. So, for example, if nag-search kayo ng organization na may website, one example of this is the Jollibee Food Corporation. If you try to search that on the internet, lalabas yung website ng JFC, and one of the links there will most likely be their FS reports and annual reports. By this HTML, those documents can be downloaded already by the users of those financial informations through their websites nang hindi na nahihirapan pumunta sa SEC. So, eventually, HTML is used to format a particular report in a web page. So, HTML defines a page layout, fonts, and graphic elements na lalabas sa reports ng website ng company or ng organization. It also lay out information of display in appealing manner like one sees in magazines and newspapers. It also uses both text and graphics, which is appealing to the user. It Also through this, the HTML, it creates hypertext links to the other documents on the website. And it links the documents on the web. In HTML is you cannot process it through IT automation, kaya ngayon dito lalabas si XML, or the Extensible Markup Language. XML is a meta language for describing markup languages, and the term extensible means that any markup language can be created using XML. This includes the creation of markup language capable of storing data in relational form where in which tags are mapped in the data values. Thus, the XML can be used to model the data structure of an organization's internal database. Itong XML is used for data structuring of the organization. However, yung HTML naman is for the formats. So, in this slide, here is an illustration for a further explanation. As we can see, we have the HTML here and the XML here. Here in the HTML part, we can see that it's more in a format. It's the size, the fonts, italicized or bold, ganon. It focuses on the format which can be displayed. While in XML, it is end user computer can recognize XML and process accordingly, relieving some of the burden currently placed on the web servers. So, for example, dito sa pictures na to, makikita natin na it talks about data and about the transaction like price, quantity, kung ano yung shipping na gagamitin, and the likes. So, next, recognizing the potential benefits of XML, the ICPA encourage research into the creation of an accounting-specific markup language. Ngayon, nakapag-derive sila ng XBRL through the researches that they made about specific accounting markup language that they can use. So, XBRL is a XML-based language that was designed to provide the financial community with a standardized method of preparing, publishing, and exchanging financial information, including the financial statements of publicly held companies. So, XBRL is typically used for reporting aggregated financial data but can also be applied in communicating information pertaining to individual transaction. So, it actually have various steps, and one of it is the XBRL taxonomy, which is a classification scheme. So, taxonomies are classification schemes that are compliant with the XBRL specifications to accomplish a specific information exchange or reporting objective. It specifies in data to be included into the report. So now, let's talk about the advantages included in the using of XBRL. So, first is that business offer expanded financial information to all interested parties virtually instantaneously. Next is that companies that use XBRL database technology can further speed process of reporting. And lastly, consumers import XBRL documents into internal database and analysis tools to greatly facilitate their decision-making process. So in here, we have the illustration that shows the overview of the XBRL reporting process. Now we have here the implications for accounting. So the audit implication for the XBRL. So we have here the taxonomy creation. So an incorrect taxonomy results in an invalid mapping that may cause material misrepresentation of financial data. So here, for example, is that yung coding mo dapat is pupunta sa cash pero na-code mo siya papunta sa ibang asset. Then it would misrepresent or misinterpret our financial information already. Next one is the validation of instance document. So, ensure that appropriate taxonomy and tags have been applied. Kasi 'di ba kanina sa XBRL meron tayong sinasabi na tags na ginagamit, and yung tags na yun yung ginagamit para ma-generate yung financial report na needed ng user. So, last is the audit scope and time frame. Impact on auditor responsibility as a consequence of real-time distribution of financial statement. Moving forward, let's now talk about the management reporting system. Usually, financial reporting system is about creating reports that are typically used by the external users. But for the purpose of making decisions inside the organization, management reporting system is used. So, this system produces financial and non-financial information needed by management to plan, evaluate, and control their businesses. This is also usually seen as discretionary reporting because it is based on the company if they want to use it or not. But in the US, through the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, it acquires entity to have MRS, which provide a formal means of monitoring the internal controls. But here in the Philippines, in our country, wala naman tayong pang ganun law. So now let's talk about factors that influence MRS designs. We have here the management principles, management function level and decision type, problem structure, types of management report, responsibility accounting, and the behavioral considerations. Factor is about the management principles. Management principles provide insight into the management information needs. The principles that most directly influence the MRS are formalization of task, responsibility to the author and authority, span of control, and management by exception. So first, let's talk about the formalization of task. So the formalization of task principles suggest that management should structure the firm around the task it performs rather than around individuals with unique skills. So eventually, inside an organization, inside a company, they are structuring the organizations per task. For example, dito is yung departments. So by formalizing tasks, the firm can more easily recruit individuals to fill standard positions left open by those who leave. In addition, the formalization of task promotes also internal control. Um, with employee responsibilities being formalized and clearly specified, management can construct an organization that avoids assigning incompatible tasks to an individual. So, formalizing the task of the firm allows specification of the information needed to support the task. So thus when a personal change occurs, the information the new employee will need is essentially the same as for his predecessor. The information system must focus on the task and not the individual performing the task. Otherwise, information requirements would need to be reassessed with the appointment of each new individuals to the position. Management principle being applied is the responsibility and authority. So the principle of responsibility refers to an individual's obligation to achieve a desired result. Responsibility is closely related to the principle of authority, which is the power to make decisions within the limits of the responsibility. If a manager or anyone in the upper level management delegates responsibility to a subordinate, he or she must also grant the subordinate the authority to make decisions within the limits of the responsibility. So, in a business organization, managers delegate responsibility and authority downward through an organizational hierarchy from superior to subordinates. So, the principles of responsibility and authority define the vertical reporting channels through through which information flows. The manager's location in the reporting channel influences the scope and detail of the information reported. Managers at higher level usually require more summarized information, while the managers at the lower levels receive information that is more detailed. In designing a reporting structure, the analyst must consider the manager's position in the reporting channel. Principle is the span of control. A manager's span of control refers to the number of subordinates directly under his or her control. The size of the span has an impact on the organization's physical structure. So the implication of this in the MRS is that managers with a narrow span of control are closely involved with the details of the operation and with the specific decisions, while summarized informations are given for managers with broad span of control. These managers delegate more of their decision-making authority to their subordinates. The different management approaches require different information. Managers with narrow spans of control require detailed reports, while managers with broad control responsibilities operate most effectively with summarized information. So, in here we can see the illustration of the relationship between span of control and the organizational structure. So, we have the principle of management by exception. So it suggests that managers should limit their attention to potential problem areas rather than being involved with every activity or decision. Managers thus maintain control without being overwhelmed by the details and information. So in this principle, it impacts our management system by the reports na kailangan nila should focus on the key factors that are symptomatic of potential problems, and the unnecessary details that may draw attention away from the important facts should be excluded from the report. So as you can see, the next factor is about the management level and decision type. So in here, in our illustration, We have top management for strategic planning and decisions, middle management for tactical planning and management control decisions, operations management for operational control, and lastly, the operations. Talking about for the top level management, which creates the strategic planning decisions. In here, the top level managers sets the firm's goals and objectives, scope of the business activities, organizational structure, and management philosophy. Um, and here in the strategic planning decisions, they also have the following characteristics. They have long-term time frames because they deal with the future. Managers making strategic decisions require information to support forecasting. They are also broad in scope and have profound impact on the firm because once made, the strategic decisions permanently affect the organizations at all levels. Um, they also have they also tend to be non-recurring. Strategic decisions are usually one-time events. As a result, there is a little historical information available to support the specific decision. The strategic decisions are also associated with high degree of uncertainty. The decision maker must rely on insights and intuitions. Judgments is often central to the success of the decision. They also require highly summarized information. Strategic decisions focuses on general trends rather than detail-specific activities. And lastly, strategic decisions require external as well as internal resources of information. It to the middle management, tactical planning decisions are subordinate to strategic decisions that are made by the middle management. These decisions are shorter term, more specific, recurring, have more certain outcomes, and have a lesser impact on the firm than the strategic decisions. So, another part of the middle management is the management control decisions, which is deciding on the resources as productively as possible in all functional areas, then evaluating the performance of the subordinates against standards. Next on the level is the operational management, which is more on the operational control conditions, and this serves as the bridge to the operations and the middle and top management. So here in the operational control decisions, they usually deal with routine tasks, narrower focus and dependent on details, highly structured, and lastly, short time frame because it needs to provide information immediately to the upper management. So, some of the basic elements or steps in the operational control decisions are set attainable standards, evaluate performance, and take corrective actions. So, for my last slide, here is a summary of what we have discussed.
Good day, everyone. I am Unique Luis Gail Napre from BSMA 24, and I will continue discussing about the management reporting system. So another factor that would influence the management reporting system is the problem structure. The problem structure reflects and affects how well decision makers understand and solve the problems. So we have here the elements of a problem structure. First is the data, which are the values used to represent factors that are relevant to the problem. Next is the procedures, which is the sequence of steps or decision rules used in solving the problem. And then lastly is the objectives, which are the results the decision maker desires to attain by solving the problem. When all of these three elements are known with certainty, then the problem is structured. So pag alam mo yung data, procedures, and objectives, it is a structured problem. An example of this is payroll calculation because you can identify the data for calculation for payroll, you can identify your hours worked, hourly rate, withholding tax rate, and so on. Also, your payroll procedures are known with certainty And then lastly, you will be able to know the objective, which is to discharge the firm's financial obligation to its employee. On the other hand, if any of these three characteristics identified are not known with certainty, then it is an unstructured problem. In other words, an unstructured problem is one for which we have no precise solution techniques. Either the data requirements are uncertain, the procedures are not specified, or the solution objectives have not been fully developed. Such a problem is normally complex and engages with the decision maker in a unique situation. In this situation, the systems analyst cannot fully anticipate user information needs, rendering traditional data processing techniques ineffective. Usually, the structured problems are typically arising in the operations. As we can see here, the structured problems typically arise here in or part of the operations management. While as it goes higher on the management level, the more unstructured yung problems. It needs more analysis kasi hindi definite. Halimbawa, nagkaroon ng financial problem. Hindi siya masosolve ng isang manual lang na meron tayo with the structured problem. So there are some sort of effect of this problem structure in creating the management reporting system. Kasi dapat we could have some sort of answers from the management reporting system, lalo na sa structured problem. So now let's talk about the types of management reports. One factor also affecting the management reporting system is the type of report that management needs in order for them to decide. Reports are the formal vehicles for conveying information to managers. The term report tends to imply a written message presented on sheets of paper. In fact, a management report may be a paper document or a digital image that is being displayed. One of this particular type of report na makikita sa management reporting system are report objectives. Reports must have value or information content. A report objective should reduce the level of uncertainty associated with a problem facing the decision maker. Kasi so eventually lahat ng reports may kanya-kanyang objectives. Example, I need data about payroll. So the objective of payroll is to discharge the firm's financial obligation to its employees. And then lastly, it should influence the behavior of the decision maker in a positive way. So next, here are the typical attributes of a report. Ito yung mga kailangan nating qualitative characteristics ng mga reports na nagagawa ng management reporting system. First, it should be relevant. Kailangan siya ay kagamit-gamit for decision making. Next, the information must also be summarized on an appropriate level of detail. So kung anong kailangang detail ng mga management, as I have discussed previously, the higher the level of the management, the less detailed or the more summarized yung kailangan ng report nila. And then next is the exception orientation, which identify risks. Next, accuracy, which is free from or free of material errors. It should be free from errors and bias. Next, it should be complete wherein nandun dapat lahat ng essential informations. Then next, it should be timely because as we all know, if the information is not timely, the decision will either be incorrect or incomplete. And then lastly, it should be concise enough para maintindihan ng users natin. So here are the types of management reports. Each of the report has its own objective, pero ano ba yung mga types of report na kailangan ng management? We have here the program reports. It is typically the system na meron ng particular format or it is already generated as per time frame. Under the program reports is the scheduled report. Scheduled reports produced at specified intervals. Example, kailangan ko ng sales report on a weekly basis. It is considered as a program report dahil meron na tayong particular format at nakaschedule na siya sa system. Next, We also have on-demand reports, wherein it is triggered by events. Example, bumaba na yung level ng inventory natin. It would immediately give the managers an idea na kailangan nang mag-reorder ng ating merchandise o kaya ng mga raw materials. On the other hand, if it is innate in the system or hindi na siya recurring na nagagamit, it is known as ad hoc reports. Ad hoc reports designed and created as needed. Situations arise that require new information. It is somehow being a modified report based on a specific need of a user. Next in our discussion is the responsibility accounting. It implies that every economic event that affects the organization is the responsibility of and can be traced to an individual manager. Nadidistribute yung responsibility in each of the departments at hindi lang centralized yung decision natin. It incorporates a fundamental principle that the responsibility wherein area managers are accountable for items that they control. So rather than the top level management has to make all the decisions, they delegate their decision-making scheme sa kanilang mga managers so that they will be able to decide on a decision for their departments. So next, as part of the duties and responsibility accounting is setting financial goals or in terms of budgeting. Budgeting helps the management achieve financial objectives by setting measurable goals for each organizational segment. So, pag na-delegate na yung responsibilities in each of the departments, they need to set their own budget which is in line with the organization's budget so that they could achieve the objective of the organization. Budget information flows downward and becomes increasingly detailed at each lower level. And then, the performance information flows upward as responsibility reports. In responsibility accounting, there are what we so-called responsibility centers, which includes the cost center, which is responsible for keeping costs within the budgetary limits. Example is an accounting department, marketing department, because they are considered as cost centers because they are revolving on their spending their budgetary limits. Next is the profit center, which is responsible for both cost control and revenue generation. An example of which is the manufacturing or production department. Gumagastos siya ng raw materials, labor, and overhead to prepare for the product that we are about to sell. And then lastly is the investment center. It has the general authority to make a wide range of decisions affecting costs, revenue, and investment in assets. Example of this is a portfolio department for the investment in equity or debt. Next factor that affects the management reporting system is our behavioral consideration, and one of it is the goal congruence. Goal congruence is the scheme wherein the goal of each department or responsibility center should be in line with the goal of the management or overall goal of the organization. The management reporting system and compensation schemes help to appropriately assign authority and responsibility. If compensation measures are not carefully designed, managers may engage in action not optimal for the organization. Next is about the information overload. So when we say information overload, the managers is being bombarded by more information than they can assimilate. It can also cause managers to disregard formal information and rely on informal. So, whatever is needed by the managers, yun lang dapat ang binibigay. So that, hindi na magkakaroon ng irrelevant information na makakaapekto sa decision-making ng isang manager. The last behavioral consideration is the performance measures. There should be an appropriate performance measures that can stimulate behavior consistent with the firm's objectives, and managers should consider all relevant aspects, not just one. When inappropriate measures is used, the report can have the opposite effect in the organization. Example of inappropriate measures are the price variance, quotas, and profit measures. So first is a price variance. It can affect the quality of the items purchased. Pag palaki ng palaki yung price variance natin from the standard price, hahanap tayo ng price na mag-fit sa standard price natin. And then, may possibility na makompromise yung quality ng product natin. The next, quotas that can affect quality control, material usage, efficiency, labor relations, and plant maintenance. And then lastly is the profit measures that can affect the plant investment, employee training, inventory reserve levels, and customer satisfaction. What we are trying to say in these performance measures is that organization should put appropriate performance measures that would really check and validate the performance of the organization. So that's it for our report. Thank you so much for listening and stay safe, everyone.